So not to interrupt your conversations, please keep them up, but some of us are going to sing a song, and it is, what are we singing? We Give Thanks. So we'll sing We Give Thanks through twice. You may rise up as you're willing and able, or you may sit there, and you may, we can't take our masks off to sing. No, just be loud. Oh, turn your phone off too, yeah. Right. Thank you, please. Thank you. Please be seated. Good morning.
Good morning.
Happy Labor Day weekend. Shana. Grazie. I'm glad to be back. Shana Tova. It is Rosh Hashanah tomorrow as well as Labor Day. Welcome to church this morning. I'm Khleber Van Zandt, minister here at the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Venice, where we strive to be a beacon of liberal religion for Florida's Suncoast and a refuge for all who seek a welcoming community, no matter your color, creed, ability, or class, no matter who you love, your gender expression, your political affiliation, or your religious belief or lack of it. Here we celebrate our differences as we learn from one another. One belated announcement. Mary Berardi died this past July 24th. Mary was 3 weeks shy of her 98th birthday, and her daughter Karen Durrett arranged a memorial for Mary that I got to officiate out at Sarasota National Cemetery on August 24th. So our thoughts are with the Berardi and Durrett families. I also want to welcome pianist Lisa Frank to our staff. I do hope you'll come by and say hi to Lisa after the service. But for right now, I think she has something to play, which, as I understand, is a prelude in G major from the first book of the Well-Tempered Clavier. Thank you. It's not Italian, or is it? This is from Johann Sebastian Bach. Lisa. Call to worship this morning comes from the poet May Sarton. Come out of the dark earth, here where the minerals glow in their stone cells, deeper than seed or birth. Come into the pure air above all heaviness of storm and cloud, to this light-possessed atmosphere. Come into, out of, under the earth, the wave, the air. Love, touch us everywhere with primeval candor. Let us worship together this morning. We have a first hymn. It is number 361 in the gray hymnal, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. I hope that's what it is. I'm not sure. It's been a long time off. Good. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Let's try that. And again, you may rise up as you're willing and able, or you may sit, but let's keep masks on if you don't mind. Thank you very much. I'm glad we caught up with each other. Going to be one of those days. Our children have their own religious education class by Zoom each Sunday at 10 a.m. If you'd like to attend or help your child attend, login information can be found on our Facebook page or on our website at uucov.org. This week we have a reading of a book written by Ken Rivard entitled Mom, the School Flooded, illustrated by Joe Wiseman.
Mom, the School Flooded by Kevin Rivard. What did you do at school today, Gus? Oh, nothing, Mom. Nothing? Well, why are your shoes and socks and pants all wet, Gus? We were doing science and all this water came in from the hall. It kept coming. Miss May said we should paddle out to the gym. The vice principal was calling his mom, I think, and then he was floating in with his phone and his fish. Gus. But there was a lake in the gym and... Oh, Gus. They opened the doors and the whole schoolyard was an ocean. Now, Gus, honestly. Didn't you see us on TV, Mom? The fire engines and police arrived. You had a fire too? Not exactly, Mom. So the fire chief asked, "What's going on at this school?" Miss May said, "You might say we just completed a science experiment." That's when the caretaker came out with a plunger. Glug, glug, swoosh, and the water disappeared. Oh, Gus, you do tell such stories. And what did you do at school today, Mike? Oh, nothing, Mom.
So if the camera changes, we'll see. If you've brought any celebrations with you to church this morning, I'll bring you the microphone and let you share briefly and personally and nonpartisanly, especially nonpartisanly. Any celebrations?
My dad is turning 96 on the 10th.
Yes. Happy birthday. 96.
Sold my house in Wisconsin Tuesday, and I think Florida would be a nice place to live, and heard good things about Venice, so checking it out.
Cool. Welcome down. Good. What congregation?
It's been a while since I went. I'm just trying to think. It's in Heartland, probably Lake Country.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Welcome to Venice. Other celebrations? If you have brought any sorrows with you to church this morning, I'll bring you the microphone.
I'm Fran Vanasek, and 17 years ago, my husband and I decided to switch from snowbirds to residents of Florida. And we went back to Maine to sell our house, and we bought 2 little Pomeranians. One of them died a few years ago, but yesterday we had to have the second put down. She was only 11 pounds, but she leaves a big hole in our lives.
Sorry.
I'm Donna Jewett. Some of you may have heard that my husband passed away August 19th. I'm going up to celebrate his life in Cape Cod, and I'll be leaving on Wednesday. I'll be gone for almost a month because I'm going to go visit friends and family and be with them. And I'm hoping we'll have a celebration here as well, and I looked at November 13th or something like that, so we can celebrate his life here with all of you. And I thank you all for your love and your support and all the cards and just the outpouring of gratitude. Thank you.
Other sorrows? I see another hand. May the gratitude and celebrations among us this day become a blessing to us all. May the concerns and sorrows of each be carried in all our hearts, a burden shared, become a load lightened. And now let's join in a spirit of prayer and meditation, beginning with words from the retired Unitarian Universalist minister, the Reverend Richard S. Gilbert. In the midst of the whirling day, in the hectic rush to be doing, in the frantic pace of life, pause here for a moment. Catch your breath. Relax your body. Loosen your grip on life. Consider that our lives are always unfinished business. Imagine that the picture of our being is never complete. So allow your life to be a work in progress. Do not hurry to mold the masterpiece. Do not rush to finish the picture. Do not be impatient to complete the drawing. From beckoning birth to dawning death, we are in process, and always there is more to be done. Do not let the incompleteness weigh on your spirit. Don't despair that imperfection marks your everyday. Don't fear that we are still in the making. Let us instead be grateful that the world is still to be created. Let us give thanks that we can be more than we are. Let us celebrate the power of the incomplete. For life is always unfinished business. We lift up those in this community who face change, challenge, or loss this day as we hold within our hearts all who suffer. And now we pray, each in our own ways, into the silence. The hopes of this community are offered forth in the names of all those who've gone before and in the names of all those who will come after. In the names of all the helpers of humankind. Shalom, salam, amen, and blessed be. Our interlude is the first arabesque by Claude Debussy. Last Sunday, I was still in Austin, Texas, helping my mother-in-law sell her home and move into an assisted living facility, which, as many of us know, can be exactly the right thing at exactly the right time. And I was planning to start my 20-hour drive home on Monday, then tracing the Gulf Coast through Houston, New Orleans, Mobile, Pensacola, and down Florida back to Venice. And then Hurricane Ida blew in. I put off leaving until Tuesday. Then, hearing of Ida's damage to Louisiana, I waited until Wednesday to hit the road. And southeastern Louisiana, I imagine, is still a mess. No electricity or drinking water, long lines for gasoline, stop and go traffic, at least when I was there, for hundreds, literally hundreds of miles, untold numbers of utility and construction company vehicles on the highway amidst all the National Guard convoys, forests of tall pine trees snapped in half and laid in neat rows of utter devastation. And water everywhere. And all the while listening to news reports of the widespread flooding, the damage, and the death as the storm moved north across New Jersey, New York, New England. Witnessing all this destruction, an old story kept nibbling around the edges of my mind. The biblical story of Noah and the great flood. You remember Noah, who built the ark? Noah, the guy with all the animals? Yeah, that Noah. Now, the first time I heard the Noah story, I must have been really small, only 2 or 3 probably, and I think I must have been intrigued with all the animals. I remember hearing the story when I was a little older, and I thought, wouldn't that be fun to build your own boat? Cool. Then a little bit older, and I noticed the bit about the flood. Well, why would a flood be so bad? You'd just go swimming in it. That was before I knew about ruined houses, downed power lines, drowning, snakes. A few more years, it's probably 8 or 10, and what I noticed was that it said Noah was talking to God, and God was talking back. Whoa, that never happened to me. I know my parents and my Sunday school teachers all told me that I could talk to God and God would listen. I was still pretty skeptical, though, because I had never heard, "Khleber, I want you to build a boat." So when I got to maybe 11 or 12, it finally struck me why Noah was being asked to build a boat. It was because God was angry. God had created all of this, but now was going to destroy it? Wait a minute. Just because God had screwed it up, everybody has to die? That's kind of an underachiever way out, isn't it? I remember being mad when I heard that, but also scared out of my wits that this God they said loved me so much could be such an angry, violent, capricious so-and-so. That part left me wanting to run, screaming. Pretty soon, though, by the time I was 13 and finally all the way grown up, I gave up on it all and tried to put the story of Noah and the flood and God and religion aside. Yeah, well, I kept growing, and I kept wondering about those stories I'd been told as a little guy, and I looked at them again, And I'd start to see why I'd been both so hooked by them and appalled by them at the same time. Because they are powerful stories, but they're confusing too. For one thing, if you look closely at the text, when God is telling Noah in this story how many animals to gather, there are in the text two distinct sets of instructions. One was Noah should gather 2 of every living thing. The second instruction was Noah should gather 7 pairs of clean and unclean animals. Well, which is it? 1 pair each or 7? It is exactly this kind of anomaly in the text that brought biblical scholars to the conclusion that there were at least 4 authors or groups of authors who wrote the book of Genesis and the other 4 books of the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible. So of course it's going to be confusing if you're reading along and the text says one thing and then says something completely different and then switches back to the original thing. It's also confusing if you think about the flood. Where did all that water come from? Oh, sure, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights, but how does the whole earth get covered in water? There's only so much water. It doesn't make any sense. That is, it doesn't make any sense until you read the other flood stories across a variety of human cultures. Hindus, Greeks, Mayans all included great flood stories in their creation myths. And right there next door to the Hebrews, in Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh contains an account of a great flood, too. In that epic poem, the hero Utnapishtim builds a ship to weather a great deluge. He brings all of his relatives and pairs of animals aboard the ship. He releases birds to find land before his ship gets grounded on a mountain when the flood subsides. In short, Utnapishtim does all the things Noah supposedly did, but about 1,000 years before the Noah story came along. So, this Noah and the Great Flood story is myth, pure and simple, Hebrew and Christian myth. Now, another strange thing, or at least it seems that way if you grew up like I did on the Great Flood story, another strange thing is the narrative as it continues after the rain stops, after the land dries out, after Noah and his family and all the animals leave the ark. So I want to pick up the text about midway through the 9th chapter of Genesis, where it says this, and this is after they went out of the ark. The sons of Noah who went out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. From these the whole earth was populated, because that's all there was. Noah, a man of the soil, was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank some of the wine and became drunk. He lay uncovered in his tent. And Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brothers outside. Then Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on their shoulders, and walked backward and covered the nakedness of their father. Their faces turned away, so they did not see their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke from his wine and knew what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan. Lowest of slaves shall he be to his brothers." So after they all leave the ark, Noah becomes the first person to cultivate grapes and make wine, which also means that he becomes the first drunk. And so this guy that God chose as the one to save out of all creation lies around, stays drunk all the time. That's not even the weird part. There's a little vignette about Noah's son Ham seeing his father passed out and naked, the result of which is that Noah condemns Ham's son and his descendants to slavery forever and ever. This passage, bizarre as it is, has been used to justify the enslavement of darker-skinned people by lighter-skinned people since before it was written down 2,500 years ago or so. The strangeness continues. The text says, Ham saw the nakedness of his father and went and told his brothers. Some scholars speculate that seeing nakedness in this biblical sense implies some sexual act. In this case, an act performed on the drunk dad by the son. So though it's not specific in any way, this passage has also been used to justify the condemnation of homosexuality. Now maybe this seeing some nakedness was bad enough in the old days to get you condemned forever by your parent, but it leads to one of the more slapstick moments in the whole of the Bible. The older brothers, Shem and Japheth, place a garment on their shoulders and creep backwards into a tent to cover Noah rather than seeing their father. As bizarre as all this is, it simply is not a story for children. I was told a PG version of this Noah story as a small child. And I have been, by turns through the years, fascinated by it, scared by it, confused, certainly, by it. And as I look at it at this point in my life, I do see it very differently now than I did at all those times in the past. Today, I think the most relevant question it asks is this: how is it when you find yourself adrift and alone in deep water? All the other tribulations in the story pale in comparison, having to build a boat to some specifications, wrangling pairs of animals, even talking to God seems small potatoes when I think of the times I've felt adrift and alone with no place to go, no solid ground in sight. Times when I felt like I was sitting in a tiny one-person lifeboat, pitching precariously from wave to wave on an infinite sea, stretching out under a vast cloudless sky. When I feel this way, and I have felt this way quite recently, thank you very much. Maybe you have too. When I feel this way, I wonder what answers there are in what is so obviously a myth about a great flood that never happened, a tall tale about a man who probably never existed. In this prehistoric narrative, I find two suggestions that I think are interesting. The first suggestion of what to do when we find ourselves in deep water is implied by the timeline one finds in the text about the length of time all this flood stuff took in the life of Noah. Now, it's granted a touch confusing, but if you count all the events listed in the text from the time the rain started to the day Noah and his family and all the animals left the ark, it looks like it's a little more than 12 months. So a year of living on a boat with no navigation equipment and no form of propulsion, a year of uncertainty, of waiting for something to happen, though we know not exactly what. Does that sound familiar at all? A year. It's a heck of a long time in the face of my need for instant gratification. So the first answer to what the text thinks you might need when you find yourself alone in deep water is patience. Ugh. This is not an answer I like, frankly. I am not patient. I pray for patience and it never comes fast enough. I am not happy with this first answer. The second answer the narrative seems to offer when I find myself alone in deep water is this: it's going to be okay. Whether it's by the grace of God, whatever that is, or because of something else entirely, the story says it's going to be okay. Here's what I mean. In the story, Noah and his family are safe on a boat. It's not a mega yacht by any means, but it's a safe enough boat nonetheless. You know, life there is probably boring. They have to take care of a bunch of smelly animals. They don't know what's going to happen next. But in the story, we kind of know they're going to be okay. We readers somehow know they're going to get off that boat and let the animals go their separate ways, and all the humans will go about their lives. It's going to be okay. Over time, some of those humans and some of the animals will no doubt get sick or get in trouble or experience loss. And of course, all of them will eventually die. All of them. Do you know what? My own faith commitment is that it's going to be okay even for them. Now, my sense of this doesn't come because I believe or don't believe one way or another in the God of the Old Testament or the New Testament or anywhere else. It comes more from something beyond the text of any book or sacred writing, from beyond any name or title we could possibly give to all that which is larger than ourselves. You know the list, sort of. God, Goddess, the universe, Gaia, ground of all being, nothingness beyond all imagining. Those are all just words pointing at what I'm trying to point at as well. Something broader, something grander, something bolder than any and all of those words that tells me it's going to be okay. For you, for me, for all of us. As bad as it seems once in a while, with all the COVID virus and its variants, Delta and Lambda and Mu, as bad as it gets some days, as much trouble and pain and suffering as there is in the world, it's going to be okay. Call it silly, call it naive, call it deranged. But that's where I go in my best moments when I'm clinging to a life raft and wondering what's next. Not patiently do I do this. But sometimes I'm able to do it. On my worst days, the metaphor of the life raft in deep water makes no sense, because it's not like I'm floating anywhere. It's more like I'm sinking or have already sunk sunk deep enough into my own version of hell that I can't quite access what on my better days I know is there. The love that is there for us in the face of all loss and all pain and all suffering. A love that goes far beyond any linguistic expression like God or Goddess or universe. I have those days when I feel alone, when I cannot make myself accept the hand that is extended towards me. I have those days when I am in deep water and slipping further away, and I don't know how to stop spiraling down. And if you ever have those days, I wish I could help. As it happens, sometimes I can help. And sometimes you can too. Sometimes on our best days, we can reach out a hand to somebody so that they might grab on just enough. The story of Noah and the great flood is a myth, which means it may not have happened. But myths don't work like newspaper accounts do. Myths carry truths that are beyond the facts of the story and below the conscious level of the plot line. The Noah myth may sound so unscientific that you can't bear to listen to it. It may be too violent for delicate sensibilities, too implausible for an easy trust. And yet, for me, it alludes to things I already know, but can't always remember. That bad things do happen, that we do get awful diagnoses, that our loved ones die. But it's going to be okay. Though the uncertainties and the variants and the storms of life will undoubtedly keep coming. In the end, it's going to be okay. For you, for me, for all of us. So may it be. Our last hymn is number 163, I believe, For the Earth Forever Turning. And we'll have 4 verses. Again, you may rise up as you're willing and able. Our benediction comes from Yuvavnik, an Inuit shaman. The great sea has set me in motion, set me adrift, moving me like a weed in a river. The sky and the strong wind have moved the spirit inside me till I am carried away, trembling with joy. Go in peace, walk softly on your paths, and may the light of love shine on you all your days.